Welcome. I'm willing to bet short stories will scare you just as much as any other. So I gathered some short stories from around the deepest, darkest pits of the internet, and I'm willing to bet I can terrify you in under 5 minutes per story. You be the judge. Get cozy. You're in for a treat. When I was around 20, a few years ago, I kept having dreams about a woman with long black hair named Aurora. They were different dreams, but for some reason her distinct face and name always ended up in them. It got to the point where I would wake up frustrated and confused, trying to Google her name or find out how I was connected to her. After a few months, she stopped showing up and I dismissed it, thinking my brain was just being stupid. Fast forward a few years later, Halloween 2009. I'm in the car with a friend stopped at a gas station. I'm about to pull out and merge onto a highway when I get a phone call from a random number. So I stop the car, but no one answers. There was a person behind me who grew impatient. They honked at me and then swerved in front instead of waiting for 2 seconds for me to move. The second they got on the highway, a silver Civic loses control of their wheel and crashes into the car that swerved in front of me. I called the cops and waited at the gas station for them to come. It turns out the drivers of both cars died. It 100% would have been me if I hadn't got that phone call. I called it back a few hours later out of gratitude and curiosity. It rang 3 times and then went to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Aurora. Please leave your name and number. I have never had goosebumps like that in my life. I called it again the next day because I was confused about the whole situation. Some woman answers. We get to talking. I tell her my entire story, including the dreams I had. She tells me she doesn't know how I got her number and that she never called me as far as she remembers. Weird. I ask her if she has a Facebook to confirm she is in fact the woman in my dreams. I check it, and it's her. Room 428 at Wilson Hall is permanently closed. Students at Ohio University, the 9th oldest public university in the US, are not allowed to so much as enter the dorm due to the numerous reports of hauntings and dangerous ghostly activity in the room. Wilson Hall was reportedly built on an Indian burial ground. Spiritualists claim that the building is located at the center of a pentagram formed by 5 such ancient cemeteries, lending this geographical position extra powers of either safety or evil. In the 1970s, a male student died under mysterious circumstances in room 428. Years later, a female student used what she perceived as the room's energy to practice rituals such as astral projection, during which the human spirit is said to leave the body and travel about at will. Not long after moving in, this student died as well. Ever since these 2 students' deaths, anyone who lived in the room reported terribly scary occurrences at all hours of the day and night. Objects flew across the room and smashed against the walls. Students heard voices whispering and even shouting, even though no one was there. The door would often open and then slam shut of its own accord. Stranger still, demonic faces kept appearing in the wood grain of the room's door. Although the school replaced the door many times, the tortured, ghoulish faces reappeared every time. Eventually, the room became too frightening, and the university feared another student death could result, so they decided to seal the door shut, forever. This is the only known case where a dormitory room has been sealed off in the US to date. When I was about 12 during a summer, my sister, who is 5 years older than me, was out with friends after work. We shared a bedroom. I was up late doodling in a notebook in bed and had an older glass TV next to my bed that was turned off. At one point, I looked up and saw, in the reflection of the TV screen, my sister walk out of our bedroom doorway and into the stairwell. When I turned around to greet her, she wasn't there. I get up and walk into the stairwell, and all the lights are still off downstairs and in the bathroom next to our bedroom. So I think she must have gone downstairs really fast, and I head down myself to find no one. At this point, I'm getting a little spooked and I want to prove myself wrong, so I went outside and her car was still gone. I sprint back inside and run upstairs to my parents' room. I wake up my mom and tell her I was pretty sure I had just seen a ghost. She was too tired to do much for it, and so I went back into my bedroom petrified. When I thought back on it, I realized the girl was in a long-sleeve dress that looked somewhat vintage, and my sister was very much a tomboy in those days. She had blonde hair like my sister, and was looking towards me while walking out of the room. I stayed awake with my light on until my actual sister got home, and I felt safe to sleep. It still creeps me out a bit to think about it to this day. I don't really believe much in the afterlife, but I know I saw a young girl walking out of the door. I wasn't really tired. I hadn't been watching anything earlier in the evening to scare me, and even further, wasn't scared when I first saw her because I thought it was just my sister. I can't explain it. I never saw or heard anything like that again. Well, how's your experience been so far? Do you feel a little tingle creeping up the back of your neck? Well, just wait. We're only halfway done. But I think we can do better. Good luck. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it had been a speakeasy, a brothel, and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I was alone in the house. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall, then through the bathroom and down the other hall. I was standing at my dresser, and I just noticed movement out of the corner of my eye and looked down there. There was, honest to God, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall, and it was only vaguely humanoid. It looked like black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribbles moved, like electricity arching. That's the best way to describe it. There was no sound that I could remember. I distinctly remembered when I saw it, I wasn't afraid, I was just confused. And then it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just sort of focused on me, I guess. That's when I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, nothing. I was just frozen. And then it just came at me. It rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what it intended, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed shut on it. Then I screamed. I yelled back for my wife, but she still wasn't home. I went outside into the daylight and didn't go back until she got home about 10 minutes later. I used to work in a bar that wasn't exactly a jail, but temporarily held people awaiting court and sentencing. Everyone had stories about the residential ghost, who we called Sebastian. The first time I saw Sebastian, I looked down the stairs while I was opening, and saw some legs in black pants and smart shoes. The ceiling was obscuring his torso. When I went downstairs to ask how he got in, he ran down the hallway and vanished. A few other staff members mentioned seeing a man in a black suit who would be in the bar after hours, while you'd be cleaning. But when you'd approach or speak to him, he'd turn a corner and disappear. Sometimes after closing, you'd hear someone ringing the bells on staff members' bikes downstairs. Or you'd hear a crash and the bikes would be moved to different places. Other times, you'd see a man in black duck into the office, and by the time you'd enter, he'd be gone. The clincher that convinced us all that it wasn't just a thing we all believed because we joked about it so often was the day the new chefs came. They didn't speak much English, and would leave once dinner service was over, so they never engaged in the Sebastian stories. One day, one of them asked about a man in black, who kept leaning in over the ordering window while they were cleaning. Sebastian was pretty chill, though. He never scared us or did anything mean. I think he just liked hanging out. The Hampton Court Palace in Surrey is thought to be one of the most haunted buildings in England. According to their website, the castle is officially haunted by at least 3 specters. Catherine Howard, the screaming lady in the haunted gallery, has been spotted multiple times over the years by palace workers and guests alike. Sybil Penn, the Grey Lady of Hampton Court Palace, who has been spotted roaming the palace since her tomb was moved back in 1829. And the palace's most notable haunting, Skeletor, the creepy apparition that was caught on the palace's CCTV in 2003. Palace officials explain on their website. On 3 consecutive days, palace security staff were called to close one particular fire door near the palace's introductory exhibition. On the first day, CCTV footage showed the doors flying wide open with great force, but there was nothing to reveal why. On the second day, the same thing happened, but this time, a ghostly-looking figure in period dress suddenly appeared on the screen and closed the doors. They add, the doors opened again on the 3rd day, but there was no further sign of the ghostly doorkeeper. Is this the ghost of the palace's most famous resident, Henry VIII?